Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Steven. How you,
Hi.
how are you today?
I'm fine. Sorry I was late.
That's okay.
Hang on, let me close my door.
Okay.
I'm closing Alfie's door. It's not a, he's letting me use his room.
We'll tell Alfie thank you later on.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. So hey, thanks for doing this.
sure.
I appreciate it. So I don't know if I actually told you this in our few phone calls over the last 6 months, but I have a book coming out. Maybe you know. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to just sort of draw attention to this project, and also I need something to do. I need more stuff to do. So I thought, oh, I can start a YouTube page and interview some of the people that I interviewed in this book.
Yeah.
And you are one of the people in the book. And our chat was very nice. You'll just have to take my word for it when you read it, when you get a copy before October 10th when it comes out. But it was a very nice interview. Covered a
It's
lot of
a very nice
It
interview.
was very nice. It was lovely. Let's see it. And the other thing about this book is that it's coming out during a really weird time. Obviously, this whole year has been very strange. So I thought maybe at this point I would have some sort of idea of doing like this crazy book tour where I can, like a fantasy book tour where I'd go places and thousands of people would show up and want to hear me talk about my book and all that stuff. And obviously that's, not going to happen. So I have to do what I can to drum up interest for this. And this is sort of what's going on. This is where I got the idea. So again, thank you very much for taking time out of your.
Our bookstores open. Our bookstores closed right now, or they're open now, aren't they?
I have no idea.
But I mean, I think they might be open, but they're probably not encouraging, long lines of people waiting to sign books.
I would think so.
Get books signed.
There's a Barnes and Noble that's about 2 miles away, and I've gone by it like a bunch because next to it is a FedEx place, and that's where I get my prints made to mail out.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. It looks like it's open, but I haven't gone inside because I'm just kind of afraid to go inside, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe. So I think it's open though, but I don't know. But anyway, so thanks again. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So the first thing I was wondering is, well, since everything happened this year, with the coronavirus and the pandemic and everything, I know that you had plans this year, and obviously that didn't happen. What were you supposed to have done to this point? What had to be put on the shelf because of the pandemic and stuff?
What did I have going that I had to cancel or postpone?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, it was sort of like, it was similar to your story about having this book coming out and you had big plans. Red Cross, I had a lot of Red Cross activity happening in 2020.
Yeah.
And it had been many years since Red Cross had been the main priority of a year of work. Probably had been 30 years or so since that. So it was a little disappointing. But so specifically what we had we had put out a new album on Merge Records towards the end of 2019. And then in 2020, Third Man Records re-released two of our albums on vinyl. We actually released them for the first time on vinyl in North America because they'd never been here domestically. Two records from the 90s, one called Phase Shifter, one called Show World. And then we were trying to have I was trying to cultivate like a big 40th anniversary celebration party for us in Los Angeles to commemorate the 40th anniversary of our first EP's release, which came out in 1980 on Posh Boy Records. And and Merge has since reissued that with cool bonus tracks and stuff. So I had all this stuff lined up, which represented, you know, a chunk of my time for sure to try to get it all together.
Right.
And I'm, you know, I mean, whatever. I mean, the labels had a lot of work to do too. They did the more heavy lifting. I just had to dig through, whatever. I did, you know, dig through archives and make a lot of emails happen.
Yeah. Did you find a good copy of Fun with Connie to put on?
Oh yeah, so Fun with Connie, so included on the Merge 40th anniversary reissue of our first EP. That's a mouthful. There's bonus tracks, including our first demo, which our demo was recorded before the first EP. We did that with Spot.
Is that with Rich Brad on it? Is Rich Brad on it?
Rich Brad's on that.
Yes.
Yeah, this Brian knows the obscure shit. With Red Cross, everything's obscure, but so it's uber obscure. And
that's how I roll.
That's how you roll. Yeah, I mean, we're the fantasy band for the obscure rollers. There's so much deep diving to do with us. But, and then I also came across, I just digging through my archive. It was kind of, did I find that before? I guess it was pre-corona because it was on its way. But towards the end of last year, right before we went into lockdown, I was getting my archive together anyways because I had a few months before I was going to go on tour, and I stumbled across a cassette that said "First Tourist Performance," which was our first band name, The Tourist.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it existed. Someone must have given it to me on the road. And I since have learned who did. It was my friend Dave from Cleveland. Dave Swanson gave it to me. And I think he got it from the guy Byron Coley. Do you know who this guy is?
Byron Coley is he's a writer. He's a music writer, critic. He wrote for a lot of people and wrote for Forced Exposure when they were at their peak.
Right. So there you go. That you filled in the blank for me. And but I think that it was maybe Dave Nolte of The Last had recorded it on a cassette player.
Right.
And it would have been from a party that we would have played at the church, the infamous church in Hermosa Beach. At any rate, so I found this recording. I found this cassette tape, and we included one of the songs from it, from the performance, and it was the song "Fun with Connie," which had never been recorded. And later on, the song was kind of borrowed by the Circle Jerks, and they turned it
borrowed. They didn't just borrow it; they recorded it.
Okay, yeah, they I forget what the expression would be, but they repurposed it. They repurposed, I would say, maybe by.
It's one of the most famous riffs off that entire record.
Is that Skank? Which record is that? What song is that?
That's I Just Want Some Skank.
I Just Want Some Skank. Yeah. So, and then
I just like saying that title. It's just like, oh, you just kind of wince every time. Brian, what are you listening to? Well, Mom, this song's called "I Just Want Some Skank."
Yeah, you have to watch out saying that now. I mean, someone's going to just pull that one moment of you saying this on video, and then you're going to get canceled somehow.
As long as I don't talk about Double Live Gonzo by Ten Asian, it'll be okay.
But so the story with "I Just Want Some Skank" is that it was originally the main riffs of it. The main verse riff was a Red Cross song called "Fun with Connie," and I had written that. I had written that riff or whatever when I was.
Did you write the lyrics?
I didn't write the lyrics. "Fun with Connie." I think Jeff and I would have written them. I mean, mostly would have come from Jeff, and it was a campy thing about Connie Francis, who we all knew from like. We don't have to go into the story, but
we don't have to go into the story.
But at the time, in the late 70s, we knew her from there was a collection of her music that was heavily advertised on morning television. I just remember that. And
she had some really depressing hits.
What's that?
She had some very maudlin, depressing hits.
Yeah. Sorry Now. Anyway, so
I got 2 weeks left to live was another one that I liked a lot.
Which one?
I've got 2 weeks left to live.
2 weeks off the what? I don't know this one. I should look it up.
That song of hers, I got 2 weeks left to live.
Oh, 2 weeks left to live. So that's not really that you've made that up, right?
I stole it from SCTV because they did a parody of her.
Of Connie Francis.
With Andrea Martin playing her, and the songs were all like, I got 2 weeks left to live. Please stop slapping my face, stuff like that.
Exactly. That's probably where we got the idea to make a song, a song making fun of her. It's probably from SCTV making fun of her.
It all ties in.
It all ties back to Andrea Martin somehow.
As it should.
But then, yeah, so at any rate, and then, so that there was no document of the Red Cross song Fun with Connie until this. And it's now out in 2020. But we were hoping to promote it a little bit, but we have not been able to.
Yeah. So you were supposed to go to Europe.
Well, yeah. Well, we were going to promote the 40th anniversary record with a big party in Los Angeles, where I had this like very ambitious idea of getting as many, alumni to come and play with us. And I had put 2 weeks aside with this thinking that, like, obviously, like Jason and Dale, who play in Red Cross currently, we were going to have a tour in the springtime. So we'd be very we would be very very well-oiled machine at this point.
Yeah.
Tour steady or whatever, tour tested, and then we would have, so they would sort of that'd be the band, that'd be the foundation of the band, and then we would have various members of the years gone by to come out and do stuff with us, whoever could make their way out, and we would rehearse with them for a couple of weeks. Anyways, so I had a show planned, a big show in Los Angeles at a theater. Anyways, it's just one of many cancellations that's happened. And then, yes, we did have a tour planned for the spring in Europe, which was going to be the first Red Cross headlining tour of Europe since 1997. We did a tour supporting Melvins in 2018, maybe, or 17. It was really cool. And then, anyway, so maybe we still actually have those dates on the book still. It's for spring of 2021. I'm not sure what that will take for that to actually happen. So hopefully it will. We will see.
Yeah.
But we have a whole tour. No one's canceled anything. No, I haven't gotten any emails that any clubs have gone under or anything. So knock on wood, and yeah. And maybe they'll find a vaccine or something, and maybe we can use that Russian vaccine that they've been using. I guess
it's weird been weird having the whole world sort of like a tossed salad thrown up in the air. You're just kind of waiting for it to come down.
Oh yeah,
it's really weird.
I mean, these times, yeah. I haven't heard the salad metaphor yet, but that's a good one. The tossed salad metaphor.
Thanks. I just
came up with that.
I did. Well, I think I used it for like my life for a long time was like a tossed salad, and the bowl has come down in the last couple of years, so that's kind of nice.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I was just trying to be clever, I guess. So well, the next question would be, what have you been doing to stay, not to keep yourself from going crazy or dwelling too much on stuff, because everything is really affecting everybody, and it's just kind of funny that in the book coming out, I'd say 2/3 of everybody in there is probably a musician.
They're all what?
That on weird concepts like playing for people and money. What have you been doing to just
Hang on, I gotta change. I'm gonna change networks because it's starting to freeze up a little bit. But if I go away, I'm gonna call you back. I'm gonna try you back. So you were asking what do I have to show for myself during these 7 months? Is that what it is? 6 months?
Has it been 7 months? It started at the end of February when we were starting to get all this information about what was happening. And then in the first 2 weeks of March, it seemed like the entire world was just, we were settling in a new world. So yeah, I was just wondering what, especially after having to make these tough decisions for all the work that you put into stuff that you got to put on hold, if not canceled. Have you been like recording or writing or working on projects, or how have you been getting by during this year?
So back to what do I have to show for myself?
Well, those are your words, not mine, but sure.
That's how my brain works. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it hasn't been quite 7 months either. Yeah, so I guess I was flogging myself a little bit immediately, like already exaggerating the amount of time that I've had. So yeah, I guess while I was working full steam ahead through mid-March, Melvin's had just toured in late February or mid-February, and then Red Cross was getting ready to leave in the beginning of April. And we were leaving maybe March 30th. So I was taskmaster general, right during all that crazy stuff. And then you said about hard decisions. I mean, that was the thing. There was really no hard decision to make. The decisions got made for us. The only thing that it felt there were illusions, the decisions, like there was a decision to postpone the dates. And it was like, okay, can you postpone them? So we postponed them to fall. I guess it hasn't happened yet, right? So we had dates for September, October, I think, of 2020.
Right.
So that was a big choice. Like, should we do that? Should we test? Should we take the chance?
Yeah.
You know, and then we put together our agent. Managed. I mean, I felt really bad for the agents. He managed to put together a string of dates, salvage it, but it turned out to be a waste of his time. And now he's done it again, and we have these dates in late spring. I don't even know. You know, who knows if that's too soon now. But it's basically exactly like a little more than a year after the dates we were supposed to do.
Right.
I've just gone through a bunch of different phases. I mean, luckily I haven't had to be, out there working with people in public. So I'm not working in a restaurant. I'm not driving an Uber. So far I haven't had to yet. That's not an indefinite situation. You know, at some point I'm going to have to figure something out. So hopefully, I just keep praying for vaccine. I'm getting
somebody really smart that's going to like figure this out and get a vaccine sooner than what people are predicting.
I'm praying for vaccine. I've been praying for vaccine without even actually thinking about like all the scary implications of a vaccine that's had very little time to properly be tested.
Sure.
I guess we're kind of just now coming out of the anti-vaxxer phase that my child was born into. So my son's 11 years old, and when he was born, it was at the height of the anti-vaxxer hysteria. And I remember that affected us. So it was the first time I'd ever really thought about vaccines, and first time I'd ever been forced to think about them. And so at any rate, it seems like we've just that's kind of been it's been quailed a bit in the last years, and now all of a sudden I'm thinking about it again. Like, wait, would I just jam that needle in my arm and let them, shoot the shit into me, and then all of a suddenly now you can imagine what seemed totally science fiction and impossible before. Now you can really imagine these things, like reading on the newspaper or whatever that the vaccine that 100 million people just took is going to kill us all.
and the conspiracy theories that will no doubt go with that.
And the conspiracy theory that what?
That will no doubt go with that.
Well, sure. I mean, definitely we'll get conspiracy theory, which is going to leave you to like go, I immediately want to dismiss it. But then, considering what's just happened, you never thought that the entire planet would be shutting down. And that,
I mean, this is the first time this has ever happened, and anybody that's been alive this is the first time anything like this has ever happened. So, it's weird. I have my good days and I have my bad days.
Yeah.
Mostly good, but every once in a while it's like, holy fuck, this is crazy,
Yeah.
But for the most part, things are still kind of the same, because I'm sort of introverted and I don't really get out very much. So it's not like, in a lot of ways, nothing has really changed. And, financial security has always been sort of there might as well have been a pandemic for the last 10 years if you think about that kind of stuff. So, it's just kind of weird with the timing of making a book that's primarily about people hustling and trying to carve something out for themselves without necessarily being employed by anybody, So, it's pretty weird.
Yeah, right. Because your book is that really what your book? Would you say your book is sort of about that? It's like it's a lot about the entrepreneur in the underground rock scene.
Yeah. I guess I can say that. Not so much. Well, yeah. I guess it would have to be about the underground rock scene, since almost everybody in the book comes from some version of that, or was influenced by that kind of thing.
But it's not all rock musicians.
No.
It's just you just interviewed a lot of people that you found interesting from various fields.
Yes, but primarily, especially some of the people I've met through working for the Melvins, for instance.
Sure.
Like most of the
that's been your main world, I mean, just music in general.
Yeah. So
for all these years. Right.
So you've just had a calm Zen attitude toward this whole thing and just...
Well, I mean, it's gone through stages. At first there was disbelief, and like you're saying, you have to make tough decisions. At one point I did feel like I was making decisions, and then at some point you kind of realize you slowly relinquish these illusions, which makes me sound like a Zen master, I guess. I have done things like I've taken up meditation for the first time in my life, things that I've always thought that were inevitable, but I was always too busy or chaotic to try, or not desperate enough. I don't know.
How are you doing that now?
As we speak, I'm meditating.
Well, maybe not right this second, but like,
I'm doing 10 minutes a day. That's it. I'm just doing like a guided meditation,
Got it.
Yeah, like on an app. I got an app. I need the manual. I need some structure, I find it helpful. I mean, because it's actually a scary thing for me, the idea of just being alone with my brain for extended amounts of time.
Right. Yeah. You might trip yourself up.
I might do what?
You might trip yourself up.
Yeah. Who knows?
Overthink something.
I mean, I've been distracted. I've been successfully distracting myself for all these years. Must be for a reason. So I hate to find out what that reason is.
Right. Well, if you were in charge of the planet during this whole pandemic situation, and if, let's say you were in charge of humanity, if there was one thing you can do at this moment that every human being had to abide by during the pandemic, what would that one thing be? That's a good question.
Okay, so if I was in charge and I could just wave a wand and everybody would obey this one wish of mine.
Yeah, you can't actually kill anybody. You gotta draw the line. But if there was if you had influence over the entire world and you could do one thing, what would that be?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, the only real sort of moral rule I have, and it just seems simple. I don't know. It's just, it is very simple. It's very obvious. Everything's built. I mean, every kind of, I guess, school of thought has come down to this, I think. It's just this idea of, well, maybe you boil it down to the one word of compassion, but just the idea of just treating other people the way I want to be treated myself. And not to sound too hippy dippy or whatever, but I mean, that's the only, when it comes down to being a parent and getting concerned about whether or not I'm I'm giving my kid anything that's really, that I have what it takes to give him something that's going to be helpful or something, or also just the responsibility of like, as a breeder, what am I bringing to the table on a bigger level? You know,
the breeder table.
What's that?
The breeder table of breeders.
What am I bringing to the table? But just, but just a human existence. Well, I'm trying to create another person that is trying to treat other people the way he wants to be treated himself. So, and that's the thing that I kind of feel is crazy about the way the pandemic is rolling out in America, is this whole thing about people freaking out about their civil liberties, and that a mask represents that being stripped away from them. And
I don't get that, because it's not like this isn't the Diary of Anne Frank. This is it's it's just like the most patriotic thing anybody could do right now is put aside their differences with people that they don't even know anyway, and just do the right thing so we can get through this quicker, which is what I thought what would happen at first. And because I just thought it was like an issue of science, and it was turned into this, political thing, and my side is better than your side. And, it was crazy, but it's probably not really surprising. But at the same time, I just kind of thought that people would actually just want to get through this. But
I don't know. I'd like to think I'm not so cynical as to not be surprised by it. It does seem like, it would seem like it's a true ambiguous villain, the virus, and that everyone could kind of unite on that. But
well, I thought, like, the virus doesn't care. The virus doesn't care who you vote for. Doesn't care what, doesn't care how much money you have. Doesn't care what's fair and what's not fair. It's a virus, it seemed pretty clear to me, but
yeah, I don't know. And so that didn't happen, because I mean, like my wife has asked me, Anna, my wife has asked me many times, like, why I watch a lot of history. She's like, you have to watch how you watch on the computer, because I think when you're sleeping, like I'll go to sleep, I always try to find really boring history stuff, and I just pass out.
Yeah.
More than once, she's looked at the computer while I'm sleeping next to her, and it's just like Hitler. like I'm sleeping to Hitler, and the bodies and all that.
Wait, you support Hitler? What?
And the thing is, I think about that, that story, we hear it over and over, and we're told it over and over. And it seems like it's, for many reasons, the whole thing about not forgetting, and so that you don't repeat. But the other thing about that story is it's like one of the few times in history, or maybe human history period, but definitely modern history, where it's very unambiguous. There was a bad guy, and there was a really bad guy. And
he was Hitler. That guy was a jerk.
Yeah, he was fucking King Jerk.
King Jerk.
Yeah, that's what Paul McCartney once called David. What was the guy who killed John Lennon?
David Chapman. It was a trap.
Yeah, David Chapman. He called him. He was a real jerk, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a real jerk.
I think most people can come together on that one too. But but his work was a bit more limited than Hitler's work. Hitler was a bit more prolific than David Chapman. David Chapman.
Yeah, David Chapman just had one thing to do, and he did it. So
yeah,
he did. He had one thing to do, and he did it.
Oh, so, yeah, he did it. He did. Well, he accomplished his goal, I guess. But anyways, my point is, without getting too far out, but just this idea that
supporting Hitler's cool.
No, I was trying to say that, I guess nowadays, whatever, we all know how polarized it is in America in particular, and that
it's worse now than it's ever been, probably.
I guess the other thing is, I guess the reason why we can't all agree on this, that the virus is bad, I guess we all agree. Well, no, we don't even agree on that, because then there's a lot of like the virus isn't real stuff, and or the virus isn't as bad as you think, and so it's all of it. So it becomes this big argument in how to problem solve. So just because it goes right back to the other issue. And I remember a friend of mine saying that, I guess we wouldn't necessarily call him a Trump supporter, but definitely not a Hillary supporter for sure. And a couple of months into it, I remember he wrote me and we were texting, and the first thing he said was like, this would have been just as bad if it was if she was in charge. I was like, whoa, okay. And then, which I responded, well, I'm sure she probably at least would have wore a fucking mask. And then, not to say that I'm the biggest supporter of her, although I did vote for her. I'm sure there's plenty of idiocy. A lot of the criticism is true, I'm sure. And
she's not very likable. She's
not very likable. Yeah. So at any rate,
but she would wear a mask, I'm sure.
I think, well, it's fair to say, right? I mean, she does now. It's hard. You can only speculate. It's only hypothetical.
Yeah.
It should be any different in that position. Yeah. But, and I guess just the position, and it gets confused because I guess it's like people don't think that office should appear weak or something, and that's why they wouldn't wear it. That's why they would support him not wearing it, because it's about the office.
Yeah, that makes total sense. In a dumb way, that makes total sense. You can't appear to be weak. We put you there, so better not. But
to me, it just makes the office look stupid. Like, to not wear it. It's like, it's not like you look weak. You look stupid not wearing. It's just, it's been an interesting time. It's been a time that I've been very grateful that I've had, that I've actually have had the, I guess, privilege to spend some time and catch up on a lot of human thought on these topics while they're going down, because people are really arguing passionately about issues that I don't think that I've been moving so quickly through my life and just trying to take care of that bottom of the human needs pyramid so much that I really haven't had time to. I didn't go, I never had a liberal arts, education in the humanities. I didn't go to college. I went straight into the van. And although I could have been reading books, feeding my brain all that time, but I didn't really have, I don't know. I'm just really interested in things now, how things work. And maybe that has to do with being a parent, or it has to do with the times. But I'm finding myself naturally gravitating towards trying to educate myself. I guess that's the thing about being nice, about being kind to one another. I guess the other thing that I would wave a wand. Can I get 2 wishes back to that? Is that I really wish that everybody would educate themselves, and not to be sanctimonious about this, because I don't think that I am, very educated at all. But the idea of challenging themselves about the education that they get, like actually purposely seek out stuff that makes you feel a little freaked out, stuff that feels like you're not allowed to be listening to.
Uncomfortable.
Take it on, and ask yourself, why is this making you uncomfortable? Is there any good stuff from this that you could get too?
I think I know the answer to that. Especially in the last 7 or 8 years, is that when you have invested, I'm not saying this is how it is for either of us, because I think common sense is kind of the idea of where we operate under, and maybe some critical thinking. But I think when people are just really blinded by this side and that side, they miss out on a lot of potentially useful information. Because I think when people are so have so much allegiance to their thing, what happens if something comes along that they read or realize or think that challenges this assumption they've had about the world since they were kids? It's like, if that happens, that's almost like an identity crisis. And I think people are really reluctant to be uncomfortable in the name of that sort of discovery, because like if that's what happens, then you're just to invest all this time in this belief system, and then suddenly something comes along and challenges it. That's probably a really vulnerable, shocking position to be in. You know, I got a handful of more questions, then I'll let you go.
Okay.
So no one's really asked you about being in Sparks, so I'm going to be the guy that's going to ask you about that. Because you were in Sparks it was when you were sort of being a side guy and learning how to do other things other than being Red Cross. How long were you actually in Sparks?
I think about 5 years.
Okay.
5 years, from like 2004 to 2009.
And I think from what I remember you telling me, it was a good experience and that the brothers were really nice people and it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a brother team. Red Cross was either completely not active or barely active during that entire time.
Yeah.
We started playing again in late 2006 and then did a few things here and there. So there wasn't very much crossover. But it was really good for me to see a brother team that I respected, see how they, managed their longevity, managed their careers with longevity and grace and friendliness and quality and all those things. And I mean, not just that they were brothers, but I think I got a little extra out of it from that since I'm in a brother team myself, creative brother team.
Right. And you're on a few of the records?
Yeah, I'm on, I think I'm on Hello Young Lovers and Exotic Creatures of the Deep. There's just 2 records that I play a little bit here and there on. And so the song Dick Around, I know I play on the big rock part.
Right.
All I do now is dick around. I'm in the video too of Dick Around.
Did you have any influence over them as far as, hey, have you guys ever thought about doing The Girl from Germany, or did they seek any input from people that played with them?
I might have. I'm trying to think if I ever really tried. I have such a negative point of view. I think that I think more about the stuff that I wanted to happen that never happened. Like a club tour of the United States, just playing rock tunes, which they eventually later did. Or they played at theaters where they just kind of did more of a stripped down version of the band. And they weren't willing to do it during the time I was playing with them for their many artistic reasons, but which I respect. But I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, just in terms of the playlist, I did get to play all those songs anyways, because regardless if I came up with that idea or not, because I was in the band in 2008 when they did this now sort of legendary string of shows in London where they played 21 albums in 21 nights. And they played all of their albums in a row and in anticipation of the release of their latest album at the time, which was Exotic Creatures of the Deep. So they went back to the very first record and played every record, 21 shows and 21 nights, but not in a row. So it was like over the course of a month, they played all of their records. And we did it mostly at the place called the Islington Academy, like a 600-700 seat club in Islington in London. And then the very last show was the debut of the new album, which they did at the I forget the Shepherd's Bush Empire, which is a classic theater in London, West London. And I got to play that show with them too. But I didn't play all 21 albums. I played about 13 of the records with them, like the rock records.
Right.
So I missed some of the more 80s 90s sort of electronic records.
Do you have a favorite Sparks album?
Yeah, boy, I love those 3 albums, the British ones, the Kimono, Indiscreet, and Propaganda. I went through a phase after that thing where I probably liked Indiscreet the best.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say I think Indiscreet, but Propaganda has the song Tits, and that's a really funny, great song. And
records have great songs. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really
and what?
they're like, what were these records? When they were putting out these records, it's like, what did people fucking think of these records as they were coming out? I mean, they just seemed so, well, bizarre, like pre-punk bizarre,
Well, they're kind of pre-diva, smart rock,
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
it's kind of like, especially I like the ones with the guitars, because it kind of sounds like, I guess, aesthetically, sonically, I like my music to sound stupid, but
sure.
They were smart, so you don't ever have to live down those lyrics, and I don't mean in a snobby way, but I mean, it's just, you can always get behind those records. It's never like, oh, forgive them. They're, the orange juice and vodka rap or whatever. You don't have to.
It was Charlie Chaplin.
You don't have to forgive them the sex, drugs, and rock and roll obsession lyrics or whatever.
They don't really seem very obsessed with sex, drugs, and rock and roll from those records.
Well, I think they are, I think in a human way, but I think that at the same time, a lot about drugs, but like, the other existence stuff, but they express it in a way that that has longevity, that you can grow old with and not be like, ooh, I'm embarrassed of that,
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering the question about Sparks, because I don't think I've listened to you interviewed a lot, and I'm not sure if people.
Well, and also I'm a little bit. Thank you. They have a documentary coming out soon. I'm a little bitter that I didn't get interviewed for the documentary. I'm gonna grind that axe right now. The brothers tried to make it happen, but the filmmaker he's some big British filmmaker, and
we don't need Steven to be in this movie.
He's like Stephen McHugh. Stephen.
I have an interview with Johnny Marr lined up. Stephen who?
So it's one of those humbling experiences.
Well, I got to ask a couple of final questions, and it revolves around the band Kiss.
Oh, what about Kiss?
Well, I forgot the story, but when did you see them? When was the first time you saw them? How old were you?
All right, Kiss. I was just looking at Paul Stanley's Instagram this morning.
How's Paul Stanley's Instagram?
Oh, it's pretty good. He's finishing a new record with his band Soul Station. We're all wearing a mask in the studio. No, it's cool. I support that.
Good for Paul.
But Paul was. Well, the other thing about Kiss is I think they closed down their chain of. Gene and Paul had a chain of sports bars called Rock and Brews.
Of course they did.
Yeah, that was actually, I had fun going to. There was one in El Segundo, which is a neighboring town to my hometown, Hawthorne.
Yeah.
And it became a gathering place to go with my parents and my son, because my son is very, very picky eater, and he really liked the ribs at Rock and Brews, so we were stoked that we could get it. And then also he's a big sports fan, which was totally foreign to me, but it's like large screens playing, pick your sport that's going on. And then there's the wallpaper was all like rock stars, the whole 27 and Dead club, peppered with various pictures of members of Kiss. Jimmy, Janice, Peter Criss.
Bruce Kulick.
Yeah. Bruce Kulick's in there next to Kurt Cobain. But but I'm sad that I think they filed Chapter 11 during COVID. So all Rock and Brews are now closed. And
well, that's too bad.
I mean, I think they were smart about it. I'm sure that those guys got out in time.
Sure.
Sad for the jobs lost. But
yeah. So how old were you when you first saw them?
Okay, so back to Kiss. Okay, so my actual relationship with Kiss, their music, not just my thoughts, my musings on their sports bar.
No, that was a great setup for the rest of it. So it's really no problem.
I saw Kiss. Kiss were the very first band I ever saw. So depending on how I feel on any given day, if I'm like I've made good decisions in my life, then I give them. They get the warm credit. If I feel miserable about my choice to be in rock and roll, then But I saw them when I was 8 years old at the Forum in Inglewood, California.
Yeah.
It was January. It was actually, I thought it was 75 of those years, but now since we have the internet, I can look it up and see exactly when it was. It was in January of 1976. It was,
Wow.
it was sort of the victory lap on their, multi-platinum first Kiss Alive album, their first live album. So
Right.
I always like to explain it that it was when Kiss were still music for teenagers before they went disco, and it would have been appropriate for an 8-year-old to be at their show. So at the time I was at their show, it was very, I guess you would say, inappropriate that I was there. But
I bet.
the stoner and the teenagers were smoking the hashish and all that.
Not to mention the lyrical content.
I lost you. Not to mention the what? The lyrical content?
Oh, not to mention the lyrical content.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Or the raps. Because if you know that first Alive album, all the raps in between the songs are kind of, legendary now. I was talking to someone backstage tonight, and he told me a lot of you people like to take a taste of alcohol.
Alcohol, vodka and orange juice.
Yeah, that's some vodka and orange juice. I know you like a little taste of tequila. Those raps, he probably had altered them a little bit, like he had built on them a little bit. But I remember even when I was 8 years old, I thought a little bit like, this is weird. He's saying all the exact same things. I think even when I was a kid, I kind of knew that ideally that those sections are supposed to be somewhat spontaneous.
Spontaneous celebration of rock and roll. But it's all...
Yeah. But, whatever. He liked to stick with the pitch. I think Gene and Paul, look, they don't like surprises. I can't fault them for that. I mean, not that I can't fault them, but they don't like surprises, and they've done very well for themselves because of it. So you can't expect all your favorite rockers to be as spontaneous and cool and weird as, Johnny Thunders or something. Look how it worked out for Johnny Thunders.
Well, luckily they had Ace Frehley, and so he was kind of the...
That's true. He kind of tempered
the wild
yeah.
card, no pun intended.
But so much to their chagrin, much to their pain and sorrow, he kept it real.
Yeah, they kept it real a lot longer than anybody would have expected them to. So they were really good.
They're amazing. I mean, I was 8, so you don't have to. I don't know if you're gonna, take that into account of my my review, but. My review of that concert was it was life changing.
Sure.
I was obsessed with it, and and I joined the proud
Kiss Army.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so I'm sort of saying, like, yeah. In fact, there's a new. I haven't seen it yet. There's some new doc that's floating around Facebook right now. That's like it's like a love letter to Kiss fans or something, and I think it's somewhat of a heavy metal parking lot kind of thing. Have you seen this?
No, I think your brother posted about it the other day.
Right,
so.
Like it just got posted. I got to check it out.
Yeah, if your brother posts it and recommends it, then that's probably going to be interesting. He seems to have good taste. And
it's COVID. I mean, you can't. It's not like you can't. It's not like you're giving up a whole lot if you spend an hour watching it.
Yeah, that's true.
Or at least I wouldn't be. But so yeah, that was my my introduction.
I got
the rock world.
It's a good one. I like.
It's a live performance. I loved rock music prior, but that was first live performance show.
I think being around you and Buzz and Dale, who also like Kiss, kind of reignited because they were my favorite. They were my gateway band, and I still have a sentimental spot for them. And for people our age, I know it sounds dumb to people that don't agree, but they were impact-wise, they were second to the Beatles. They were kind of like my Beatles in a way, because it was like I didn't really like rock music, but I wasn't ready for rock music yet. And then they came along, and it was like, it just changed everything. And they were the gateway. So impact-wise, they seem to be up there with, you know, the Beatles, arguably. Even if people hate their music, hate them, and hate them to this day, they had such a huge impact on so many people that you have to give it up to them. And also, they had good songs, whether or not they were borrowed from other people, whatever. But, you know, if they didn't have good songs, nobody would have cared. That's how I feel about it.
Room service, baby, I could use a meal.
We're going to get to that.
You do what you feel.
It's actually my last question.
I feel the pleasure. I'll take the pleasure with my pain. I can't say no. No.
Genius.
Yeah, you know, well, I mean, look, they definitely modeled themselves after the Fab Four too. I mean, you listen to Paul's, which we've listened to Paul's audiobook together.
It's amazing.
It was great. But I mean, he'd be the first one to say that. But I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, even why don't they just think about really simple things about how they had their microphones stand set up?
Yep. Or the way two of them would sing into a...
Yeah, it was always just two mic stands. There's not a center mic stand. And then Ace would often just be in the center, the lead guitarist in the center between the two singers. Yep. Or Paul would do a lead vocal and Gene and Ace would sing on the same mic like Paul and George often did.
Yeah.
So it's great. Group's great. The crazy thing is that it wasn't...
Group's great.
Well, but the crazy thing is it was only, you know, I mean, Kiss really kind of hit it less than a decade after the Beatles stopped touring.
Yeah.
So it wasn't much of a gap, actually. So it seems crazy to me now because I guess time moved much slower at that point in my life because I was a child.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's crazy to think that the Beatles broke up and in less than 6 years, Kiss was...
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, Kiss were huge. I mean, Kiss got together 3 years after the Beatles broke up.
That's crazy.
But they were playing Shea Stadium. Let's see, 10 years after the Beatles were playing Shea Stadium.
Posers. Beatles did it first.
Yeah. But the Kiss had probably sounded better. They had better PA.
Yeah. Well, here's my final question.
Okay.
And, thanks again for doing this. We're going, yeah. Will you please tell me the Ladies in Waiting story? I love that story so much. And
so you've been to the market, Brian, and the meat looks good tonight. And there's ladies in waiting. We'll show you what it's all about. So you've been to the market. Well, so my story was that, so 8 years old, I love Kiss. I go to their concert. And I don't only like the live album. I now like the first three albums. The
Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, and the debut, self-titled debut.
The eponymous debut album. And
the originals.
Yeah. And you remember from being in Southern California public school, like during the winter time when it would rain a lot, you wouldn't go outside during lunch break. You would have lunch inside your class sometimes. Because I mean, we never ate lunch in a cafeteria, at least at my school. We always had lunch out on tables in elementary school, at least. And so when it was, you know, in Southern California, it's always mostly sunny. So when it would rain, you'd stay in class, and maybe the teacher would let you do something fun, like you bring a record to school, or they would play some records on those little all-in-one 1950s standard issue record machines, record players, and so this would have been like 1975, 76, I guess. And I'm 8 years old in third grade, and I bring I guess the Dress to Kill album. I think that's the one that has Ladies in Waiting on it, and I don't know the other kids. Well, I can't remember what the other kids were bringing at that time. I remember in 6th grade, the other kids were bringing, a couple years later, the other kids were bringing Saturday Night Fever class. And I had brought a Dickies record to class, and that didn't go over great either. I brought the 10-inch, The First You're So Hideous, and You Drive Me Ape. I brought that to 6th grade, and that didn't go well. But it was okay, but it didn't go great. But then in 3rd grade, a couple years earlier, I brought Dressed to Kill, and the other kids were probably bringing like, I don't, Supertramp or something. I don't know what would have been.
Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah, Olivia Newton-John. Yeah, and it gets me nowhere.
Right.
Right. It's a good song.
Good song.
But yeah, so it probably would have been. That's a really good. They would have been bringing some Olivia Newton-John, maybe some Linda Ronstadt, maybe. I can't think of any kind of dance music that might have been. Anyways, I brought. So you've been to the market, and Mrs. Dalton asked me, "What song would you like to play?" And I said, "Well, first she looks at the record cover like I had just like handed her pornography." Like bestiality pornography. They're like, yeah, look at the picture. Yeah, the one with the yeah.
Dressed to Kill.
The one with the horse. So I said, oh yeah, Ladies in Waiting. You know, I guess I thought that was, you know, like kind of like a historical. It was a period piece, like some kind of King Arthur or something. And she just like put the needle down and she let it play, you know. So you've been to the market and the meat looks good tonight. Rip.
Did she say anything to you? Like, we're not going to be playing
Yeah,
this.
I think she asked for another song maybe, and I think I said "Come On and Love Me." That's on that record too, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were my 2 favorite songs on Dressed to Kill: "Come On and Love Me" and "Ladies in Waiting." And she just scratched her way through both of them, played maybe 20 seconds of each. You're like rip, and I remember being totally baffled. Like, wait, what was that? Like, I didn't even understand. I had no understanding whatsoever that she was censoring my taste, and she was not into me promoting these values in her classroom.
Kiss values.
Kiss values. Yeah. So that was that. And that's my story.
I love that story.
Mrs. Dalton, or Ms. Dalton. She looked like, you know, like a Pan Am stewardess from 1964, you know. It was 1976, I think. But not as hip as that. Not as hip.
No,
she had been a Pan Am stewardess in 64 and then never got hip beyond that. And she still had that look in 1976.
I enjoy a lot of the stories you've told me, but for whatever reason, maybe because I was a big Kiss fan, that story in particular just really doesn't. Yeah, it's really funny.
That warms the cockles of your heart. Yeah, it's a pretty funny one.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing you didn't bring in Hotter Than Hell, because if she looked at the back cover of that, all that crazy stuff going, like what?
I think I might have even known like not to bring that one. I'm sure I'm just now imagining that, but I almost feel like I can remember being like, maybe not this one. But I will say, in your drawing, because you just recently did a Red Cross satire of the cover of Hotter Than Hell. I just want to say my favorite part of the drawing that you did was Dale Crover as Peter Criss, and he's flexing his muscle as Paul Stanley, Jeff McDonald as Paul Stanley, has got his arm wrapped around Dale's thigh. That's my favorite part.